The Estates General of 1789, a seemingly innocuous event, would ignite the fuse of the French Revolution and forever alter the course of history. In the heart of France, a nation was divided into three estates. The first estate was the clergy, the spiritual leaders who held sway over the souls of the French people. The second estate was the nobility, privileged and powerful. They were the decision makers. The third estate was the commoners, the lifeblood of the nation, yet they had little voice in the governance of their own lives. The late 1780s were a time of financial turmoil and political unrest. France was drowning in debt, thanks to extravagant spending and costly wars. King Louis XVI, desperate to salvage the economy, made a decision that would set the nation on a path of revolution. He summoned the Estates General, an assembly representing all three estates, to find a solution to the financial crisis. The Assembly of Notables, convened in 1787, failed to address the financial crisis, setting the stage for the Estates General. As the Parliament of Paris and the king locked horns over the registration of taxes, the tension in France escalated. This marked the beginning of a power struggle that would shape the future of France. The king, Louis XVI, was in a bind. The financial crisis was worsening, and the Assembly of Notables, convened in 1787, had failed to provide a solution. The king saw one way out: the registration of a loan. But such a move would not be easy. It would mean going head-to-head with the Parlement of Paris, an institution that had grown increasingly assertive. The Parlement, a judicial body with a long history of resisting royal authority, was not about to let the king have his way. They dug in their heels, insisting that only the Estates General, a traditional assembly representing the three estates of the French realm, had the power to register taxes. This was not a fight the king had anticipated. Undeterred, King Louis XVI dismissed the Parlement of Paris. In a bold move, he attempted to establish alternative institutions to bypass the Parlement. But this was met with fierce resistance. Not only did the Parlement resist, but their defiance also stoked the fire of public opinion. The people of France were watching, and they were not impressed by the king's attempts to sidestep traditional institutions. The king, realizing that he had underestimated the Parlement, decided to change tactics. He summoned the Parlement to Troyes, a city far from the capital. Here, away from the prying eyes of Paris, they reached an agreement. But it was a tenuous one, and the seeds of discord had already been sown. As they returned to Paris, the Parlement and the king were acutely aware that they were walking on thin ice. The king had tried to assert his authority and failed. The Parlement had stood their ground, but at what cost? The people were restless, the financial crisis was far from over, and the future of France hung in the balance. The king and the Parlement reached a tenuous agreement in Troyes, but the simmering tension would not be quelled. The stage was set for the convocation of the Estates General, a meeting that would change the course of French history forever. In January 1789, the Estates General was finally summoned, a decision that would mark the beginning of the end for the French monarchy. This General Assembly represented the three estates of the French realm: the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners. It was King Louis XVI's response to the mounting financial and political unrest that was stirring the nation. The convocation of the Estates General was a momentous event. It signaled a shift in power dynamics, a move towards a more representative form of governance. However, this transfer of power to the new government was not a smooth transition. It was met with resistance, not just from the king and the nobility, but also from various factions within the commoners. The convocation was seen by many as an opportunity to voice their grievances, to demand changes that would better their lives. However, the king and the nobility saw it as a threat to their power and privileges. This clash of interests resulted in a series of protests and confrontations. The king, in his attempt to retain control, dismissed the Parlement and tried to establish alternative institutions. However, the Parlement, backed by the commoners, resisted these attempts. What followed was a power struggle that led to further unrest and upheaval. The aftermath of the convocation was a period of great turmoil. The unrest that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted into open rebellion. The king's authority was challenged, his power diminished. The commoners, long suppressed and ignored, found their voice. They demanded change, they demanded equality, they demanded liberty. The Estates General of 1789, initially seen as a response to financial and political unrest, would become the spark that lit the flame of revolution in France. It was a pivotal moment in French history, a turning point that marked the end of the old regime and heralded the dawn of a new era.